Good evening. This is Ronald Allen with Managing Change on Facebook Live Chat. Today, this evening, marks the end of probably my 15th project management facilitation of project managers from a very diverse pool of industries, segments, responsibilities in helping them to get certified, to be certified. And today's discussion is, are you designed to learn? Are you able to assimilate not only the information you're required to perform your jobs, more importantly, to adapt to situations that you recognize, that you feel? That translates, of course, into your personal life. And we constantly use your personal and professional life as one, because the skills are transferable. The competencies are usable across the board. Okay, so I'm going to work through a segment of information that in project management is used to help project managers better understand themselves, the environment they're working in, the people they're working in, so that as we talk about managing change, we become more flexible, more adaptable. We become chameleons, if you will. And not to look at chameleons in a negative light, which perhaps some do. And in some of the conversations over the 4 days, this is a boot camp, by the way, that I've been, again, I consider myself a facilitator in this realm, because these project managers are very apt in the level that they have reached and now looking for certification, and certainly, more importantly, how to use the processes, methodologies, the mindset to more effectively engage with their associates and colleagues, both vertical and horizontal within the business. So we'll kind of kick off with gathering an opinion. And gathering an opinion really is gathering an opinion about yourself. You know, it's easy to look outside and say, this person, identify weaknesses, issues, or desired behaviors that you would want and impose on someone else. So let's look first and foremost at ourselves. And the humility, one of those intangible gambits that's in my new book that will be coming out, 13 Behavioral Gambits. The behavior that we wish must start from ourselves, and we must have humility in order to look and see that we need and we can benefit. Our relationships will improve. People will see us as more approachable. And the irony when we say approachable, we get what we want because we are communicating to people in a way that they feel safe. And I'm going to use that term on purpose. People need to feel safe across the board, irrelevant of time, occurrence, hostility, even from CEO level down. And of course, I'm referring to the behavior of our chief executive right now in the White House. It is a hostile environment. So we must first and foremost arrest our response and have the humility to realize that perhaps this individual simply is not versed in this skill. So gathering opinion is about ourselves. And then secondly, about the environment. Now, typically in a lot of coaching, leadership styles, we talk about the environment being other people. Well, I'm going to try something new here tonight. And thank you very much, Solly, for joining in on Managing Change Facebook Live Chats. Tonight's discussion is, are you designed to learn? When we talk about gathering opinion, typically we look at external. And I've presented the supposition that first and foremost look at ourselves and then look at the environment Now, I'm going to stop short there. Instead of saying look at other people's behavior to adapt, look at the environment that's causing them to be distracted, that's causing them not to consider the force propaganda, if you will, right? The noise, if you will, the drama, which is constant. All these distractions manipulate them to behave a certain way, and unless they are aware of that, they become subject to it. We, on the other hand, I say we as if we're separate and apart. We're not. We're all part of the social context and the environment that we experience, right? We manage ourselves, recognize our challenges, our desires, and manage that communication with the environments we engage in, and people are part of that environment. Some of the work we do in project management talks about stakeholder management. Well, look at your own family. How do you manage those dynamics? The challenge there, of course, is you've grown up into it, so it's a hardwire behavior. You heard the expression, I see you naked, because I've seen you multiple times doing the same thing. And for you to change, and my perception of you to change, is that much more of a challenge. So gathering opinion, and I'm going to stop at, first and foremost, identify you, your needs, your behavioral pros and cons, then the environment that we all exist in, and then learn to engage that other person. And as a stakeholder on multi-million-dollar projects, it is absolutely crucial to spend time up front. And as in cases where I've been mentoring and coaching a few people, if they're thrown into a situation that's untenable, take certain key people aside and ask them and let them know, look, I'm uncomfortable with this as well. This is the situation I found myself in. Are you willing to take some time out to let's have a one-on-one and identify how we want to move forward? That's collaborative. That's managing your state, the state that's influencing the other person's environment, and also their environment on you, their opinion on you, without saying this is how they are. Take that out of the equation. Don't define other people. Don't subject people to an opinion. And I say that, and I can earnestly say I do that with my wife. She'll say, "Oh, you think this?" I'll say, "No, I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to hear. I'm trying to regulate myself because the objective and outcome I want is at this time not being achieved. We're not aligned. We're not moving in the same direction." That's really the heavy lifting in communications. A second component in terms of are you designed, are you able to learn, is sharing opinions. Once again, culture, the environment, the climate we're in. Teresa, thank you very much for joining in this evening's Managing Change Facebook Live chat. We are talking about, are you designed to learn? The second stage, and I'm leery of stages because in a dynamic environment, you've got to be able to move A to B and C to G, right? Because maybe the environment requires it, the engagement level of different people requires it, and the art and science of it is you being engaged in multiple different scenarios that require you to be astute, to be aware, to develop that awareness. So sharing opinions. How do you share an opinion? Okay, one is to ask, what do you think of? What's your perspective? How would you go about? Another, which we found from project management, is to take industry standards, indices, and say, based on these similar traits, similar environmental conditions, this is what we've found in other cases, other projects. So we're sharing, we're taking people to a safe island. Good afternoon, Nichelle Richardson. Thank you for checking in with Managing Change Facebook Live chat. Tonight's discussion is all about, are we designed to learn? So when we say sharing opinion, do we take our information and ask in an engaging way? Do we look at, certainly, remember there's lots of reference material when we talk about family dynamics, right? Behavioral dynamics of family, disruptive family conditions, enablers, right? When we look at the business world, same traits transfer in. We look at nepotism, we look at narcissistic behavior, we look at favoritism, right? Little fiefdoms within an organization. People start to congregate together because they have a similar goal and desire. So now, in terms of learning, how do we manage that state? How do we use it for the common good of all and still retain our sense of self-worth? One of the expressions with the project managers was, well, if I tell you something, you're going to run off with it and own it. Yet that same concept, that same belief says you cannot own something until you give it away. So there's the conundrum, right? There's the question. Do you have the confidence in yourself to be able to give information to others and not worry how they manipulate it? On the other hand, one of the project managers said, well, what if you coax that information, and we call it script the memo, in a written document and put it up on a shared file or in a note environment, message center, so that if the discussion comes back and someone is less than trustworthy, you can call them out on it, right? You can call them out on it. So in being able to learn, it is not information, but rather how we take that information and then play it out in our life, in our daily life. Okay, this is not something that you have to wait 6 months for. These discussions are all about taking the information today, now, and applying it in your daily challenges. Another component, and I'm going to kind of finish off here and do a kind of a general a story. We love stories, right? To kind of pull things together. Provide reasoning. As you've heard me say before, the why? Why? Because as kids, the why is everything. And if it doesn't make sense, we can feel it, we can smell it, we can sense it, we can taste it, right? How many times have you been with your supervisors, managers, colleagues, right? You've gone to lunch talking about a discussion and someone throws out some information. Now you can learn by saying, okay, that's what this person says because they have authority power, title power, right? Position power, right? Association power, right? Good afternoon, Sylvia. Thank you very much for checking in with Managing Change Facebook Live this evening. We can listen to that conversation and say, well, okay, it is what this person says. Or we can learn by recalling past conversations, past experiences, past environments, and begin to test like a litmus test, right? We talk about risk assessment. Well, we do that every day. We chunk that information and we chunk it real quickly. So provide reasoning is, does this make sense? Does this pass the litmus test? My litmus test. You know, I always kid with people. I don't want to be your friend. I want to understand you. That takes a lot more work. Friendship, saying I want to be your friend, is setting up to say we think alike, we have the same interests, we have the same goals, and yet you haven't really spent the time in confirming and affirming that. Whereas if I say I want to understand you, then every encounter we have, every conversation, every outcome of a conversation, and certainly in our behavior, I begin to understand how you behave in different situations. And the beautiful thing, I believe, with humans is that you never stop learning. You never stop discovering that person. At one time, they may feel threatened, so they fight back, or they're defensive. Another time, they could still feel threatened and then reach out for help. What a construct. What a mind that allows for those two seemingly opposite points of view when they are actually the same, because they're looking for engagement. That's what managing change is really all about. So tonight's discussion was entitled, Are you designed for learning? Are you able to learn? And we talk about gathering opinions, gathering information. We talk about sharing that information, and we talk about provide reasoning. And it's how we go about that we learn about ourselves first. We must take ownership. And that makes you humble. It really does. It makes you realize that, guess what? You're not all that. You know, there's room to grow. There's a desire to grow. There's a benefit in growing, instead of subscribing to the same old context in which you have been educated, which you've been socialized, your theology, your family, your dynamics, your closed dynamics. Once you engage with people from many different areas, you begin to see that life is a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more engaging. You have to consider more options. And the longer you willingly engage in those environments, you become more self-confident because you don't have to own it. You're not about just the outcome. It's how other people feel about what you've achieved, and are they willing to work with you again? Learning, becoming intelligent, moving. You've learned something. How do you apply it in the marketplace? How would you apply it today, tonight, tomorrow, under different situations? And being willing to be flexible, right? Like the gefilte fish, no backbone, right? So, this is Ronald Allen, Managing Change on Facebook Live Chats. You know where to find me.